You're not a Kamala person. I know you. I've watched you. I know him better than he is. You know what? Without speaking to you, I think I know you maybe almost as well as your wife. I have watched you for so many years. You're not a Kamala person. You're a Khabib person, but you're not a Kamala person. Nobody's going to know who Khabib is, but
they know who
he was not bad, right? That guy.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
Marc Maron has his sights set on this guy.
I covered in the special that, real rights are denied and real lives are at stake because of, what comics thought was an anti-woke was just about their language issue. And now they were used under the sort of auspices of anti-woke. You destroy all the policy that helps people who are vulnerable or marginalized or in trouble. And I can't separate them. I will remain committed to the fact that they did that comics helped that.
Joe Rogan and the rest of the right-wing ecosphere for the role they played in where we are currently today.
There was these lawsuits that they were trying to pin on him. They were trying to convict him and turn him into a felon, and they were doing it so blatantly and obviously. The case with the bookkeeping error or the bookkeeping, whatever it was, the misdemeanor that they had charged him with 34 felonies for, which isn't even a felony. It's a misdemeanor.
It should have been a campaign contribution.
Exactly. It's also past the statute of limitations. None of it made any sense. And people were cheering it on. He's a convicted felon. Like, hey, they can do that to you. Do you understand that?
Yeah,
if they can do that to a former president who's rich as shit, they can do that to him. They can do that to you too. You can't cheer this on. This is insane. And then when they try to kill him, all those things.
Twice.
I was like, yeah. But the big one, the Pennsylvania one, was like, holy.
Because Maron sees how Rogan ushered in his audience to become staunch MAGA loyalists.
I do still think that outside of just the kind of emaciated world of press and this chasing of clickbait, I do think in terms of the ideological bend on it is that it's anti-elitism, it's anti-intellectualism, it's anti-expert. I think it's all part of that. I think that in terms of how fascism or authoritarianism, we've got a president who is a thug. So, his way of doing business is like, oh, you got a pretty nice university here. Hate for anything bad to happen to it. Hey, it's a nice state. No, hate for anything bad to happen to it. Maybe you kick into the charity. Yeah, it's straight up mob. However you see Trump, he's still a puppet to something that is bigger that he doesn't give a about as long as he can be the guy out front. But those guys are the guys that are dismantling the federal government in the name of Christian nationalism. But I think that the way that business, see what you're saying to me feels like that, fascism is good for business.
Yeah.
Because if you, like Netflix will just, co-opt anybody that can tick that algorithm. And I think I used to do a joke about it. Netflix can become Reichflix, very quickly.
Including how mass media and streaming platforms like Netflix have just bent the knee to fascism.
Tonight, comedian Dave Chappelle once again at the center of a swirling controversy, drawing swift backlash for jokes in his latest special, The Closer. Critics characterizing the remarks as transphobic and slamming Netflix for airing them. The special prompting some to boycott the service or cut ties. Today, a group of transgender employees at Netflix announcing plans to stage a walkout next week. Netflix recently suspending 3 employees who criticized the streaming giant, but now lifting that suspension. One of the employees, trans software developer Tara Field, had openly questioned Netflix's decision to air the special, tweeting, "Promoting TERF ideology, which is what we did by giving it a platform yesterday, directly harms trans people."
Maron also shines a light on the streaming giant Netflix and how they had a real opportunity with Dave Chappelle, but failed in the process.
And I think the pivotal moment was when they had pushback from the trans community about Chappelle. They realized after several days that that community was not going to affect their bottom line at all.
Yeah.
And they cut them loose. And, that is how fascism works in business. It's like the bigger audience. That's them saying, like, we got this other stuff and we know there's a few of you. but we're throwing you a bone. So shut up. Yeah. But the big money's on the ones that you're talking about that titillate in a certain way that is not always right-minded. And look, I'm people can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like, my belief is that eventually this stuff would have found its level. That ultimately, in terms of, left-leaning or specific marginalized cultures, creating grassroots action, by overwhelming Twitter and stuff, when Trump was campaigning for the second time, that was ebbing, that it would have found a level where tolerance would have maybe reigned. Because, I believe that in order for democracy to work, if these guys are doubling down on intolerance and hate, that you got nothing to work with.
An interesting perspective to share. Furthermore,
I have the credential. There was nobody who was harder on Trump or more prescient about the fact that he wasn't going to leave office voluntarily than I was. I feel like I have the credentials. But they also respect me because I'm honest about the woke train to crazy town.
The woke train to crazy.
And I don't shrink from that. And I've also lost a lot of fans for that. The woke people have left the building, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
On this washed up comic.
What do you think about Bill Maher?
I can't do it. I can't, I don't. Tone, I always had a problem with his tone. I think I did politically correct years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
A couple of times maybe. Yeah. And I think I did real time maybe once or twice. Mm-hmm. I feel with Bill that there is this, and it happens with some of the other boomers, there's this desperate chasing of relevance that, changes someone's mind in terms of how they approach what they do, and also kind of makes the whole undertaking feel desperate. And outside of his ideas about primarily, I think, wokeness, I don't know. It's just not for me. I know his joke he's got good joke writers who know how to write for his tone. And I've known a couple of those guys. They were comics, and they're good guys. But I can't see past the desperation and what he's willing to do to stay in the conversation.
Maron went in. He has done this previously. There's a funny joke about how they say not everyone needs a podcast, and let me be clear, I agree. There are some bad ones out there, and the market is oversaturated right now with podcasting content. However, let's be clear. If you are using your appearances on certain podcasts, especially liberal centrist podcasts like Pod Save America, and crushing the liberal darling that is Bill Maher, good. Boots Riley called this guy out a while ago. Chance the Rapper called this guy out a while ago. We know who Bill Maher is. We know why he sucks. Marc Maron has been in the podcasting game for a long time. He is an OG in this industry, all right? But what he has done in the last, you could say 20 plus years, but even in the last 3 months to promote this comedy special, which I believe is on, it's on HBO Max. The framing of not going after, but critiquing and understanding the direct correlation between the rise of right-wing comedians, what they have railed against, and the actions that have taken place that have led to certain effects within our society, and how our acceptance of certain cultures has simply been eradicated in what seems like the snap of a fingers, is rather vital and important. I would love to have this guy on the show, by the way. But let me also be clear. What he is doing is way better than what 98% of podcasters are doing right now. Because what he is effectively symbolizing is that, no, they are in the wrong. They are partially to blame for the rise of fascism. And they all did it because they couldn't say a few words. Like, tip of the cap, bravo.